what you guys are doing, that Big Country 100 men and women groups who care. There's been a lot of benefit into the community, outflow into nonprofits that were sort of on hard times, and it's been a real blessing to a lot of groups. So I do also encourage you to get involved if you can. I'd like to say I'm glad my son's here with me today. He's a very busy young man, and that's Colton. Yeah. So he went and got some business cards. Did everybody get a business card? Okay, very good. My apologies about that. I didn't bring them in with me. All right, I'd like to share with you guys about our journey somewhat, but then also try to leave a little time to answer questions on what it's been like for someone such as I to launch out into an entrepreneurial path that is not part of my DNA. So it's been quite an interesting journey. It's been a journey of faith. My wife and I took our parents, they're up in their 80s now, we took them to see the Ark in Williamstown, Kentucky. Have y'all seen that thing advertised? It's a life-size replica of what Noah built. And is it incredible? I'm telling you, if you can, go to that. It's really amazing. We bought some matching t-shirts. And on the front it says, "Faith like Noah." Whenever I saw the vastness of that ark, I realized that my faith really hasn't produced a whole lot in my life. It hasn't produced. Yeah, I have it, but what have I done with it? We hear the stories about the mustard seed of faith. You all familiar with that, right? What the Lord's revealed to me of late is the seed is great, but that's not really the point. The point is what's on the inside. If you plant an acorn, there's a mighty oak tree on the inside. And that's what the Lord wants from us, is what's on the inside of that faith. I considered Peter, who walked on the water. He walked and he sank. Oh, do we talk about that a lot. Today, whenever I was taking our youngest to get dropped off to go to church camp, it occurred to me that Peter lived for just a short span of time in a different realm. He lived in a realm where faith determined the progress. It determined the outcome. Even though the undertow was against him, even though the wind was raging all around him, he was in a different realm, a realm of faith. And that's where we want to be. That's where I want to encourage y'all to go. Who we are. Houses for Healing is a 501c3. Houses for Healing, Inc., technically. Located here in Abilene, and we provide free short-term medical housing to those in a medical crisis, and we use little tiny houses. I think you got to be 400 feet or smaller to qualify, and all this happened without us knowing what a tiny house really was. It just happened to work out that way. There's miracles all along the path of this journey of faith. They're 392 square feet, and they've got everything that you need inside of them to live with autonomy. You don't have to depend on somebody to give you a ride to McDonald's to eat because you got a kitchen. You don't have to depend on somebody to give you a ride to or get in your car to go to the laundromat because you got a washer and dryer. It's really, really cool. By the way, I'm not a builder. This happened by a miracle. It was in that realm where the Lord let faith establish things. Here's what we provide. So we go to people, and this is sort of the scenario, okay? Life sometimes takes an unexpected turn, and a person finds themselves in need of life-saving treatment away from home. Every family has a story. The challenges of fighting for that life extend far beyond just the medical care. You got a life that you got to live while you're doing that, right? These are the dilemmas that they face. Will I be physically able to drive back and forth to my home between treatments? You know, you think about a cancer patient. If they're getting chemo and radiation, they're all alone. How are they going to make the trek? If not, if I can't do that, where will I stay in Abilene on a limited income? Did you know housing, an apartment, a hotel, even the League House can get unbearable for people who have nothing? How can I afford to eat out for weeks at a time. These are struggles, these are dilemmas for people whenever they're fighting for life. How will I get around Abilene when I know no one and I'm too sick to drive? What will happen to my house and my pets while I'm gone? And that's where we come in. This is what the Lord's laid on our hearts to do, to minister to people that are in these types of dilemmas. So it can be for someone who's fighting for life, or it can be if they've had a baby prematurely. It can be for any type of medical crisis. So it's a Ronald McDonald House plus, 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 plus. In fact, why is it the Ronald McDonald House? Why did a Fortune 100 company say, let's do a good marketing strategy here that's going to make us be family friendly, that's going to make people really want to choose us to buy their burgers from because we're kind and compassionate, and let's just do what Jesus told the church to do. And whenever I saw that, I went, oh no, that is a testimony against the church. We are a medical hub. We have fantastic medical campuses around here. I grew up south of Trent on a little farm, and just if you called an ambulance to come out there, I mean, maybe 45 minutes, and that is really, really a fast turnaround. We take it for granted being in the city here of what it's like to have these medical facilities and doctors available, so readily available to us. You go outside of Abilene a bit, and all of a sudden it gets real hard. It gets real hard. And because it's the big country, and it's a big country around here, there's a big distance in the big country to get back and forth for medical treatments. We've got Hendrick and Texas Oncology, Abilene Regional. People are coming from all around into Abilene. What's the population of the big country now? 450,000 or so? So that's a lot of opportunity for us in a church city to do what Jesus said to do. Love your neighbor, care for the sick, have unity, all of these things, we can do it. So we've got these little houses, and that's the purpose that they are intended to serve. They're designed specifically to care for those patients and their family members, so family members can stay with us if they have a hospitalized family member, that's getting treated. Their family members can stay for free. They've got a full kitchen, a washer and a dryer, a walk-in shower, a queen-size bed, a love seat that reclines, or one house has a couch, flat screen TV with Wi-Fi, internet. It's got secured access. It's a safe environment, and it's a 3-minute drive to Hendrick. This is what it looks like on the inside of the Sweetwater house. They're very nice, very accommodating. You can actually go in the front door and get a wheelchair all the way to the back, and they're only 392 square feet. I did not design that. The Lord gave me a vision. I hope I don't offend anybody with this, but that's what happened. I'll share that in a moment. But it came from the Lord. This is a 392 square feet house, but it's wide open. This is looking from the other end. This is the bathroom area. We've got the washer and dryer there. The walk-in shower. Here's where we're at. So if you take I-20 around and you're going to go to Hendrick, you take exit 286A, and immediately when you get off on the service road, make a right. That's Hickory. And we're a block and a half down on the right-hand side, on the west side of the street. See how close we are to Hendrick right there? This is a little zoomed-in visual. You can see in the green box up there, that's exit 286A. And we're just down a block and a half on the right-hand side. I invite y'all to go over there and take a look. You've got my card. My information is also on the back of the postcard and the flyer. If y'all would like to give me a jingle, I'd be happy to give you a tour and show you. So they're in Abilene, but they're for the big country. The vision is to have a tiny house for each of the 19 counties of the big country, plus our veteran house. That puts us at 20. This allows us to go to the rural area churches, and we present them with the house as a resource. That enables the churches of those areas to have their sick be cared for in Abilene. Normally, what they do, if the person has a church, if they have somebody that is willing to help them, they usually are taking up money to try to get them a stay in a hotel or the league house, and they might try to have some money for them, and that's the limit of what they can do to help because they don't have the people that can drive back and forth and so on and care for them. Houses for Healing provides an opportunity to say, this is for you. Now then, in the community, Throckmorton is a great example, they can say to Terry Armstrong or to Greg Dunlap, these are real names, real people that have stayed with us from Throckmorton. They were in houses side by side at the same time. So they're there with us, and we're loving on them. We got different churches that have the houses, and they're pouring into them the way that the Lord lays on their heart to love our neighbor, to feed them, provide transportation, and what have you. So they send the sick to us. We get the churches that have adopted the little houses. So not just churches, life groups, whoever, but a group of people that's willing to just love on whoever stays in that house and be somewhat dynamic where this time this guest doesn't have a car. The next time the guest has a car, but it's a gentleman and he doesn't cook very good for himself. And so you just sort of roll with it dynamically and adjust so that you can care for whoever's in that tiny house. We help with the food and the transportation, and we pray for them, and we lead people to Christ. Luke chapter 10 talks about the fields white unto harvest. Pray that the Lord will send laborers out there. Literally, guys, I've had people ask me, how do I get saved? Because I was given a death sentence. They say I've got 3 months to live. What do I do? Somebody help me. And that's been an opportunity. It really is a field that's very white unto harvest. The churches, meanwhile, back home, they help with their lawn, they help with the utilities. So it's a big, big picture of church involvement. Okay, so our first 4 houses here, we've got the red roofed one. This is for the Sweetwater area house. They're sort of serving like 5 counties. If you go to our website and look at the houses, how it works, you can see this house serves about these 5 counties, this house serves these 5 counties, so on and so forth. And that's the way we're sort of covering the geography right now. Eventually, Lord willing, we'll have the 16 other houses, and then we'll rename them to be county houses. So that's our phase 1. This is the lodging provided as of 7/18, so it's making a difference. 1,251 nights of lodging so far. That is a lot. That's a lot of money that it's saved people that didn't have the money because they're paying medical bills and buying pharmaceuticals. And we've served a pretty broad swath, not just in the big country, but from California, from Kansas, people that are traveling through, and they leave with an impression of Abilene like you can't believe. All right, this is what we do for the companies that help us. We have a page, it's called We Care, and on the We Care page, we put the companies that make donations to us and help us out along the way, and you go to this place and you see compassionate, friendly companies. So when people are looking at our website, and we're starting to try to advertise a little bit to generate traffic, they see this site and then they click on the icon and it takes them to the website or Facebook page or what have you. So it's a way that we say thanks and also try to generate some type of movement around that company name there. This all started with a call. I used to be in the semiconductor industry. I did research and development. I worked for a Japanese company for nearly 10 years, then an American company. We did the equipment that they use to make the stuff, the integrated devices that go into the things like that camera right over there. Those little black packages that you see on the circuit boards, we made the equipment that makes the stuff that goes on the inside of the black package, the little black thing. So we use scanning electron microscopes and do all kinds of really, really bizarre stuff, and that was my background, not building. Whenever R&D was outsourced to China and to Taiwan, I looked for a place to hang my hat, and I came west back home and went to work for Invenergy. Invenergy, a renewable energy company. The Lord blessed me there. In a few years, I was the corporate training manager, building a training program for them, doing the learning management system and everything, and life is comfortable. I work from home. I have my jammies on down here and a button-up shirt up here so I can do the conferences, and I got 160-something technicians under me that I'm taking care of, and I traveled when I wanted to, and I made good money, and it was so nice. And the Lord says, this is not what I've called you to do with your life. And things change. So I left Invenergy after much time of prayer and preparation with my wife, because we needed to live on her income. It's been a faith walk, let me tell you. So left. I told the Lord, I can't do this, Lord, unless you help me. I can't mooch off my wife. That's not a very good testimony, Lord. And so we transitioned. We started a new business. Now this is all, I don't know that tiny houses are coming yet. All I know is that the Lord said, this is not what I've called you to do with your life. It's time for a change. We started a business right before I left Invenergy. And we have a property management company. We borrowed money to buy houses. And so this was a training ground for me, unbeknownst to me of what was ahead, that I would have to learn property management because the Lord's going to call me into doing houses, okay? It's the handiwork of the Lord. So we start buying little properties. And what we did, it's circular. This is the financial part of it. So we formed an S Corp. We paid tithe and offering off the cash flow. Everything else had to go to maintenance and insurance and taxes and pay the note and all that. But it becomes a place where I've become familiar with being the innkeeper. That's what Houses for Healing is as far as me. We are the innkeeper. The story of the Good Samaritan, the guy that doesn't have a name, the guy that's in the background, but the guy that's trustworthy, the guy that'll look after the man whenever nobody else is around, when the Samaritan's gone. That's our job. We provide the tiny houses, and that enables the Samaritans from all over to come in and love on our neighbors. So we launched Sunrise Ministries, which is a ministry that my parents started. It's a church, a 501c3. For those accountants, Form 990 not required. It was a church. And that was the basis. Still had no idea that the Lord was going to call me to look after the sick people, look after the sick folks. And so we started that little church, and we had like 12 people that came together, and I'll show you more about that in a moment, but that was the beginning of doing this. If you feel like you're supposed to do something with your life, guys, we've talked about big faith, what's on the inside of the seed. We've talked about doing something new and different. There's no model for us to follow, no model for us to pattern ourselves after. There is the Hospitality House apartments down in Houston. There's different places around that provide a place to stay, but nothing that I could find where the church is to be involved at the level that we're seeking to get the church involved, where it becomes about this church has this house, and this church has this house, and this church has this house, and so on and so forth. And the Lord looks down on Abilene, and Abilene has unity in the body of Christ. You know, we got 3 Christian universities. We got more churches than anybody else around that has a city the size of us. And if there's a place that's supposed to be demonstrating what it looks like for unity in the body of Christ, it's Abilene, Texas, right? So the Lord gave us this. By the way, another one of the many, many miracles is our domain name is housesforhealing.com. Think about that for a moment. After 30 years of the internet, something so short and catchy, we knew that we were supposed to do Houses for Healing at this point. Friday night, 11 o'clock, we're in the office back there. My wife and I don't know what in the world we're going to call this. We want it to be catchy. Healing for the church, healing for people in their lives, healing for relationships and all this. And we didn't know what to call it to contain or catch all of these different facets. And I say, honey, we haven't even asked the Lord what He wants His houses to be called. And we close our eyes and I say, Lord, please show us what you want your houses to be called in Jesus' name. And we open our eyes and it just comes out. I say, it's supposed to be called Houses for Healing. And we go, yeah, that's cool. That matches. Yeah, that fits. We go to bed and my wife has a dream. She says, I'm supposed to register the domain name of Houses for Healing. And I said, you are? It's not going to be available. And so we thought DBA and all this kind of stuff. Well, she goes in there to our GoDaddy account, which we had for Sunrise. And would you believe housesforhealing.com, .org, .us, .net, everything. It's available. And that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me that the Lord had preserved this model, this plan right here for Abilene, Texas. Because when we build this out, they're going to come from everywhere to see how the church has unity. That's how you care for the sick. You go back to where Jesus started it all, caring for the sick. Isn't that amazing? That's not me. That came from the Lord. So we met for free at Wolfpack Software. My wife works at Wolfpack Software. She's a CPA. She was the first employee up there. And we started getting tithe and offering. We're going, wow, what do we do with this? This is the Lord's money. What do we do? I'm afraid to touch it. And the Lord just lays on my heart that we need to start sending it to Israel. And so I find promise keeper. I'm a promise keeper from way back, and so I know they're good ground to put the seed in. And so we start sending the money to them, and they're doing a thing in Israel to bring the church of America, the little pastors over here, connect them with the little pastors over there that are being persecuted. And so we send it over there, and then I get a call out of the blue from the director of operations, says, "Who are you and what are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're a little church, and we're supposed to give our tithe and offering, our tithe of the tithe to Israel." And he said, "Well, how would you like to go to Israel?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I got a free trip to Israel. Since we started this thing, I've had 2 free trips. I got a trip to Ireland, to the place of my ancestry. They show up at the door one day and they got a camera, and it's 23andMe. I won a trip to go to Germany and Ireland and all over. That was 2 trips since I started this. I don't know why all that happened, except maybe the Lord says there's more for you out there than what you even realize if you'll walk by faith. I don't think anybody had the perspective of Peter whenever he walked in faith. We came back from Israel, and I met this guy named Mikael. We had church service there at the Windsor. It was Section 8 at the time, and they are struggling. They're poor. Mikael, he's a Jewish guy. He's a Vietnam vet. I show up, and he's got his kippah on and his tallit and everything, and I just got back from Israel. So I know this guy's Jewish. So I say, "Hey, man, can we turn that TV down? Because it's blaring." He couldn't hear. And we're about to have church service in the blue room up there. And I said, "Would you mind turning that down?" And he's sort of a gruff guy, kind of guy and all that. And I said, "Oh, you're Jewish, aren't you? I just got back from Israel." And that broke the ice like that. And we began to walk in relationship. In fact, Mikael, he had cancer. I didn't know it at the time. He had esophageal cancer. And Mikael and I became friends. I would be his ride to Texas Oncology. I helped him with his feeding tube. Did all kinds of things with Mikael. He was all alone in life. The only people he had around him were in jars. He had his mom's cremains in his apartment. He had his wife's cremains. Along the way, we get really close. And back up for a second. Mikael, whenever he passed away, he asked me to take care of his estate. He had nothing. I said, "Well, what do you want us to do?" He said, "I want you to cremate me, and I want you to take my cremains, my wife's and my mother's, to Colorado, to the Black Canyon, meet my friends up there, and take us out to the edge of the canyon." I learned later this is illegal now. But we did. But we got these cremains, 3 sets, 3 urns in the back of the car, and we took off to Colorado. Met people we had no idea who they were, all loaded up in a caravan file, and went out to the Black Canyon and had a service for Mikael out there. It was awesome. It was the best vacation we ever had. We made it part of our vacation. So you never know what faith is going to do. If you walk by faith, where it's going to take you. So in 2014, I had to do a prayer walk around the city. This is what, now that I'm leading up to how the Lord develops houses for healing inside of me. Okay, so y'all know the principle of the Lord He'll drive out the inhabitants. Everywhere where you put the sole of your foot, He'll give you the land. That's so personal to me at this point. I go, "Oh, Lord, I put the sole of my feet. Everywhere I put the sole of my feet, the Lord's going to drive out the inhabitants before me. He's going to give us the land. It's going to be the promised land. It's going to be for Him." So I go, "Oh, I've got to walk around Abilene." And so I do. I walk around Abilene, and I'm praying for the city. I'm praying for businesses. I'm praying for the colleges. I'm praying for the government. And it's a long ways around the city. So I'm praying for that so we can have revival. That's the object. I'm praying for revival. As I'm praying for revival, I finally get back home, and then I have to start walking the streets of the city. And as I'm walking the streets of the city, I've got this Nike app that I'm tracking myself with, and I'm trying to turn all the streets blue because I've been down that street, prayed, and all this. And the Lord speaks into my heart. I'm not, and it's like sort of terse, I'm not sending revival until you have unity. Well, I know Acts chapter 2, and I go, "Oh, okay, Lord, you're tired of the division. I understand." So I go, okay, Lord, I'm praying for unity. And I'm doing this, I'm walking and praying, and then the Lord asked me a question. What are you willing to do for it? What are you willing to do for it? Whenever He asked me that, I knew my life was about to change. What are you willing to do for it? That's a new concept, isn't it? What are you willing to do for unity? It means you got to sort of do something, right? You got to strive for unity. You can't just sit back and hope that somebody will become your friend. You got to engage, right? You can't just be nitpicky and say, well, there's this problem, and this problem, and therefore it can't be friends, we can't get along. The Lord asked me, what are you willing to do for it? That means none of those excuses can hold water. Somebody's got to reach out there and strive for unity. And I told the Lord after a couple of days, I'll do whatever you want me to, Lord, but I need some help. So I'm trying to speed the pace up here a little bit, guys. I told the Lord I'll need some help. While that was going on, I wasn't ready in my heart to do this call because I didn't have love in my heart. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I am going to ask you the question. As a believer, do you have love in your heart enough to do something? Enough to do something for somebody? That was where I was at. I didn't have enough love in my heart to do something for somebody. I didn't have it. The Lord had to fix me. I was messed up. So one day I'm driving toward downtown Abilene on East North 10th. I'm going down the hill and I look back over there and I see the skyline of Abilene that I'd seen so often. And all of a sudden I just break down and I start crying like a baby. The Lord put this love for me all of a sudden for Abilene, and it was overwhelming. I just wept for our city. We need to care for our city. We really need to care. So I had passion for people like I'd never seen before, like I'd never felt before. I actually began to care. I didn't just hear a story and then say, oh, I'm sorry, and then forget and move on. It affected me differently. That was happening at the same time with the prayer walks. And that's whenever the Lord gave me. What are you willing to do? You need some love. Now it's time for the vision. So I had to go on a journey to get ready, to be able to see this and to grasp this. So I talked to our church, the 12 people, and I said, okay, I feel like the Lord's telling us to love our neighbor big first before we try to get us a building or rent place or anything like that. And I said, how do y'all feel about that? And I said, I feel like the Lord's calling us to do something for the sick. I don't know what it's going to look like. What do y'all feel? And we all voted to love our neighbor before we got us a building or anything. And that's how we began to save our money. We saved our money for 3.5 years. We're not underwritten by anybody that has deep pockets. It's been that walk of faith. So, we prayed and we voted and it was unanimous. And that was the next 3.5 years. So, we began to visit during that time as we're saving our money, the sick at the hospital. We would pray and ask the Lord to lead us. One day we show up at a lady's room and she wants communion. She's about to die and she says, I need communion. There's nobody, she lives at the Windsor, I didn't know it at the time. We hadn't started our services there yet. She said, I need somebody to help me with communion. I've got cancer and it looks bad. And so we go out and buy a communion set, come back and we do communion with her. And she is so thankful. She is so thankful. And she invites us to go do services at the Windsor. And that's whenever I met Mikhail. That's how I met him right there, was from being up at the hospital trying to answer a need for communion. And that led to the encounter with Mikhail. And that's what we still talk about in our family today, is how incredible it was for that trip. Yes, sir. 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I am going to jump ahead here and show y'all some of the pictures so you can see where we started from. So we saved money, we got the land, we got a plan for a house from a vision the Lord gave me to go to Cisco and see this little gray house. I had my wife call this lady that she had a friend over in Cisco, and we're going to build houses for people that are sick, but we don't know where to start. And my husband had a vision. You know, you don't tell people that you had a vision. That's sort of weird, isn't it? But it's true. And so my wife tells this lady about the tiny house that I saw in my mind as I'm praying there at the recliner. And she says, well, I drive by a house like that every day going back and forth to work. And we go, well, she said, I'll take a picture and send to you. So she did. And I said, my wife showed me. She texted it to her, and my wife showed me. I said, we're going to Cisco. So we loaded up, went to Cisco, saw this little house, and that was the basis for doing the design that we have now. We changed it up, but that was the basis, the 14 by 28. So these are some pictures of what we have over there. We rezoned in 2016. I'm going to jump ahead just to the pictures so I can scroll through some of these. Yep. I'm sorry I'm running out of time, guys. It's built on the Word. We put a Bible in the ground up there and dedicated. So this thing is for the Lord. It's built on the Word of God. And so we've had tons of help along the way. The Lord's just sent people to us, and we've had contractors donate. We've had people that have just pitched in and helped because we had just enough money for the 2 lots and 1 house after 3.5 years. That's all we had. But after we started, then people said, oh, I remember whenever, or let me tell you a story about, and all of a sudden you see why Jesus said to go to the sick. Because everybody, 6 ministries of Matthew 25, hungry, thirsty, naked, stranger, sick, prisoner, only sick. That's the one common to everybody. Not everybody knows hunger, not everybody knows prison, but everybody knows sick. And that's why Jesus sent them out with that authority. So we go through and we start building. As people come along, we can build not just 1, but now 2. So we get the slabs poured for the others as we go along. Without the money to build them, we just did the slabs. You can see them in the background there. As we're doing this, the neighborhood starts building up. Now then, there's new houses all around us. It's actually quite nice. Our houses look like a baby brother to the houses right next door. It's incredible. The Lord knew what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. So that's our 4 houses as we are going through the process. That's Hardin Simmons, a fraternity, came out and painted that first house for us. And then we had the roofs donated. Leidick Hooks has donated all the roofs. And they're the nice ones. We had this house here being painted by Broadview, young adults. They came out. So I'm going to just go quickly here, but I want you to see that it's the community thing. People pitching in, oh, this one helping, oh, this one helping, this one helping. And not everybody does a whole lot, but when you get enough people doing something, it's a big impact. A guy from Dice, a young man from Dice, came out and did the shed for us, our storage building. Okay, I'll stop there to allow a couple of minutes for questions. Yes, sir, Tom.
You ever thought about prefabbing these, or you just build them on site?
We've done everything stick-built to date. However, for those interested in tiny houses, Amazon has a product now. They're selling kits out. So I don't know what it's going to look like for us going forward, but we want to have houses that we can just go to churches here in Abilene and say, here you go, this is for you. I don't know how we'll get there, but that's the desire. We want to just say to this church, this church, this church, we just want to say this is for you to steward. So stick-built is a long way to go. It's hard to go. We do have right now about 5 houses that people have soft commitments on. We've got businesses in town that want to build a house, and of course we let their branding be on it. And we've got some churches that have said that they want to build a house because they want to put their ministry teams into loving on people, our neighbors, love our neighbors in a tangible way. So, yes, sir.
Do the houses have to be at a certain location?
We want to get them as close as we can to a medical facility. Now, we're currently over at Hendrick, but I'll tell you there's a tremendous need out south. So we are hoping to get something sort of south at some point.
How big of space do you need per house?
We need, if we stick with the 14 by 28 model, We need,
Like in between the houses?
oh, okay, so you have to have 6 foot from the property line to the edge of the house, 10 feet between houses, and then, well, that's sort of it. So if you have 2 houses that are on 2 lots joined together like we have, in between the middle houses, you have to have 12 feet because it's 6 feet both ways. Yes, sir.
What do they cost to build?
Our best guesstimate, and this is purely just a guess, is about $50K furnished. It's a little over, but it's hard for us to say, put a number on that because of the donations. So somebody would donate materials. Some would give us a deeply discounted rate on materials. Some would donate this or this. Our builder, our contractor, would allow us, our general contractor, allowed us to piecemeal things. So we'd have this group do a slab, and they'd give us a good rate. Then somebody else come in and do the framing, they'd give us a good rate, and so on and so forth. And that's sort of how come it's taken so long.
Does that include the slab?
Yes, sir. That includes the slab and the plumbing. The plumbing was, wow. Longmire did our plumbing, and it was just, everything was free on the plumbing. So
So you work through companies and churches as sponsors for each house, is that the idea?
yes, sir. Get companies and churches to help us build them. And of course, we let branding and everything happen, but we want the community to be involved. You know, it's really not about, well, it's about the community. So we want people, the community, to be involved as much as they can or are willing to do. Yeah. No, sir, not yet. Not yet.
What's your phase 1? How many houses are you going to try to get built within a certain period of time? Have you got a phase 1, phase 2 timetable or anything like that?
Well, we've got the remaining 16 houses. We just, for this part of the vision, is we want to have just as quickly as we can. It's without having the money to set a firm budget. It's sort of up in the air, so to speak. So whenever we get land, you know, we'll have development. We'll have all the, you know, clearing of the land. We'll have the lines for sewer and water and electricity and all that stuff before we can get to the point where it's this much per house. Parking, that's a whole nother thing. Parking is really expensive. Did y'all know that? Wow, parking is really expensive. Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of special zone area or zone they have to be, are they just considered a house, or in some places zone not that would be in there?
We did not encounter any type of building code restrictions against against tiny houses. We simply had to abide by, at the time, it was the 2012 International Building Code that we had